To take your health in your own hands and your own mental health in your own hands is a rebellion against the powers that be. I wish it wasn't that way. But what I've come to realize is the only thing that we can do about it is this. I've brought this topic up before, but unfortunately, it's still relevant. It seems like it always will be. It seems like people are sicker than ever, mentally, physically, and emotionally. Every time there's a mass shooting, I can't help but spiral into how do these things keep happening? Very little has changed since Columbine, and the infamy these people get from the media is wild to me. I understand that people carry out these destructive acts for all kinds of different reasons, but where do we start to help them stop, or is it a lost cause? I don't believe gun control is the only option, because the black market will thrive. And even if mental health care is available, I wonder if sick people would even take advantage. With the most recent shooting in Nashville, now the trans community is in the negative spotlight, which seems pretty unfair considering the gender of mass shooters being disproportionately male. It feels like this is something we will live with forever, and it breaks my heart. Well, depending on how progressive you are, this person was male. This was a straight white male, not a, if you want to go that route, if trans women are women and trans men are men, that was a straight white man. But it wasn't. It was a trans male, and it was disgruntled. And there's a lot of things here. Like, this person clearly shot up a Christian organization and probably had a lot of resentment and frustration and hatred towards that belief system. I can imagine growing up as somebody who was confused about their identity, being constantly shamed, would have some kind of like frustration towards that. In the same way that look at like Columbine, and while I'm not justifying these actions, it is important to find the deeper cause here of like those kids were bullied and treated super shitty by certain people. Like, it's by no means justified, but you can see a causality between like what their experience was and what happened. So maybe that's part of the story. I don't think they've released her manifesto or whatever. So when we look at this, I mean, so much of it's been done in bad faith. I kind of went off on Instagram, and it's something I'm kind of glad we're doing this like a little while after the kind of like news cycle, which is kind of sad in itself that the news cycle around the shooting has passed. But I'm glad we're having this conversation now, because I just have zero interest in like almost like grifting off of that thing again. I've said what I need to say about mass shootings. It hasn't changed much. And I the big point is like there's very little of this is done in good faith, right? We have, if we talk about firearms generally in the United States, like this is a product of what we have here. It is what it is, I had somebody in my comments being like, well, assault rifles are responsible for all mass shootings. That's not even close to correct. That's maybe the narrative that you receive, but that's the facts don't bear that out. These mass shootings that we think about as mass shootings, like school shootings and grocery store shootings and stuff like that, massage parlors, all like whatever that, the things that have happened in the past couple of years, that makes up a very small percentage of actual mass shootings. A mass shooting is when 3 or more people are killed in a shooting event. A lot of those, I don't know if it's the majority of those, but a lot of them are murder-suicide. Somebody kills their whole family and then kills himself. That's a mass shooting. If you have a gang shootout between 10 people on one side and 10 on the other, and more than 3 people get shot, that's a mass shooting, right? So a lot of even school shootings are gang-related violence in the parking lot of schools. So we have to look at this. It's a broad picture, but like the media has such a stranglehold on what the narrative is that we can't have a nuanced discussion. So much of it, the gun control or the like whatever side you're on, there's very little nuance and there's very little overlap. And I've tried to become this kind of bridge to see like if we can have a productive dialogue. It is just, it's an uphill battle that like, I don't know what to do. You know what I'm saying? It's like you have people on one side being like, this is what it is, a mental health thing. And then you just say that until everybody forgets about it. And it's like, it's a gun control thing, like David Hogg. And it's like, well, it's a little bit of both, but like everybody just wants to call it what it is. It's like, oh, the sky's blue. And it's like, what are solutions here? Like, if you're not, this is kind of the rant I went on Instagram was like, if you don't have some kind of like idea or solution that people can engage with, then shut the fuck up, and that's where we're at. And if you think about it, like we live in a sick culture and we'd have to dig so far down, right? So far down. I think the first thing, and this is maybe seem like a weird non sequitur to mass shootings and mental health, but like our food is poison. Our food in the United States is illegal in Europe, right? A lot of it. Seed oils, which now Instagram, by the way, is now flagging seed oil posts as potential misinformation. So it started with COVID vaccine stuff, and now seed oils are now misinformation. The fact that seed oils were built by created by the Rockefellers to become machine lubricant, right? That's misinformation or malinformation because it's true, but it's inconveniently true. And I'm going to talk a lot about that on the next public show, so we'll get into some of that stuff. But our nutrition, our food system is corrupt and broken. It feeds into our pharma system, which is corrupt and broken. They're in this Venn diagram of bullshit that's creating. I mean, you got to think about this, guys. Like, and I'm not saying that seed oils are responsible for mass shootings. That's not what I'm getting at. But like, if we go down to the roots of the issue here, the way that seed oils cause issues in the brain, issues in the heart, like there are serious effects of things like that in our nutrition that are causing mental health crises that are underlying. If you're eating well, if you're eating clean food, if you're eating mostly like meat from animals that live the way that animals are supposed to live, and vegetables that grew the way that vegetables are supposed to grow, and fruits that grew the way that fruits are supposed to grow, right? If you eat mostly those foods, which is real food, and you get out in the sun and you move around, right? And you exercise in some way. I don't even mean like, oh, you don't need to do CrossFit, but like go on a goddamn walk in the sun, right? If you do those things, the risk of you having a mental illness decrease substantially. Not that it's impossible, but if you're not doing those things and you're like, oh, well, I'm depressed, like, then get the fuck outside, man. Like, look at your nutrition. But we live in a world where propaganda is runs so deep in our culture, right? And then the conservatives can't do shit because that's pro-business. To limit the propaganda and lying and make our food not poison would be interfering with business when it comes to conservatives, right? And to call it what it is for Democrats would be fat shaming. Do you see how we're stuck between a rock and a hard place here? Like, we're trapped. We're trapped in this. We're trapped in a nation that has more money than we know what to do with. We can send it everywhere else. We can't put it in Ohio or Detroit, right? We can't have food that's not fucking poison. Okay? We can't get people that are living on the street off the street. Texas and Tennessee wouldn't take mental health funding from Obamacare because they believed that Obama was evil, because now that's the narrative, right? It's like, oh, the other side's evil. Whichever side it is, doesn't matter. Whatever side you're on, the other side is evil now. Well, that doesn't really create an environment for making any kind of positive change, does it? Right? So poisonous food, corrupt systems, excuses from both sides for different reasons to excuse the donor class, right? And I know we don't want to talk about politics here as much as we have been, but these are all things that actually do have an impact on our lives. And what we can do is not play into that system, right? You got to understand big food, healthcare, and pharma all work in concert, right? You don't need a conspiracy when interests converge. And they all work in concert to leave us as profit centers. You know who is super profitable? Like my daughter, for example, is not going to be profitable for the healthcare industry, for pharmaceutical industry, for any of these things, for big food, none of those things, right? She is not a profit center. You know who is profitable? A little fat kid, a young, obese child with some kind of mental health disorder. That is a gold mine. Keep that kid. If you are pharma, big food, or the healthcare system in quotes, if you're those things, keep that kid barely alive for 50 or 60 years, and that kid is a gold mine. You got 5, 6 different doctors giving 5 or 6 different medications and doing this, and everything's an intervention, and get them on Ozempic and do this, and then eat that, but don't change your diet because that's not diet, it's genetics. But then you take Ozempic because you need pharmaceutical intervention because it's not your fault, and it's not something you can actually do. You have to have an intervention because we need that, and then that's capitalism, and then you have money, and then creates incentives, and it's a joke. It's a joke. Humans and organizations run by humans will move towards incentives. Markets, right? If you are a libertarian or a capitalist, markets are driven by incentives. These companies are incentivized to keep people sick and barely alive. And if you make excuses for that, you are part of the problem. Okay? I don't give a fuck what your ideology is. What are your principles? And the best thing we can do in our own lives, what we can do about it, is live through our principles and be an example. That's what we can do. Are we going to fix the gun problem? No, we're not fixing shit. We haven't done shit since Columbine. We're not going to fix shit. We have a bunch of gun laws that don't make any sense. They don't make any sense. So what you think? Some Democrats are going to go and be like, hey, you know, we've had a lot of these gun laws in place for a long time. A lot of them seem to not make sense. Let's go ahead and like put a bill forward where we try some new things out to see if that would maybe make things more efficient and better without punishing private citizens, but also maybe keeping these firearms out of the hands of people with mental health issues. And maybe you don't need to wait a year to get a suppressor for your hunting rifle. Like I'm having to wait 10 months to get a suppressor because I want to protect my hearing, right? Why? Do you think it's going to take the ATF more than a couple weeks to find out that I'm not a criminal and I don't really have any intentions of doing anything weird? I just want to not my hearing up when I'm out hunting. You know, don't I have a right to do that? Like, are they going to go, yeah, you know what? If we can't find out you're a criminal in 8 weeks, you get your suppressor. You think the Democrats are going to come present that like, hey, we need to roll back some of these gun regulations that don't make sense? Let's maybe classify semi-automatic magazine-fed rifles that are larger than a 22 caliber as something different than a break open 12 gauge, right? Or a Browning BPS pump action, or a Remington 870, or Remington 1100 that somebody's using for bird hunting. That really is never like used in some kind of like silly ass mass shooting thing. And maybe we should like make those different so there's not as big of a waiting period, and we can go about doing that and like really like, you know, so that the citizens can actually, if they want sporting rifles and different stuff like that, they can get those. And then we have a different system over here, make it more efficient for everybody. Is anybody going to do that on the Democratic side? And are Republicans going to come out with in good faith and be like, yeah, you know, maybe a magazine fed 5.56 is a little different than like a bolt action 270. Maybe those are a little bit different. Not that you don't have a right to own one, but maybe we're not playing the same game, you know? Are they going to come out and be in good faith about that? No, they're not. So we're not going to do shit. This is a product of us living here. What you can do in your own life is lobby for your school to have armed security. That's what you can do. That's what you can do. That's it. And be able to protect yourself. That's it. Nothing else. Are you going to fix the food system? Who's going to do that? Again, Democrats can't do it because it's fat shaming and their donors play a huge role in that. Republicans can't do it because they jerk off to big business. Nothing's going to happen there. So what can you do? Take yourself out of the system. Make it a priority for you to get out of the system of being profitable for pharma, healthcare, and big food. Take yourself out of that system. Do not play their game. If people want to, cool, they got the freedom to do so. You don't need to be that person. You can be better than that person. Am I saying, oh yeah, you're superior to people who are playing that game? I absolutely am. Yes. If you choose not to play the big pharma, big food, corrupt healthcare system, if you choose to not play their game, you are better for it 100% of the time. Eat real food, get outside, move your body, learn, find things you're passionate about if you can. But even if you're not, right? Even if that's not like, you're not like, hey, you know, that's a really privileged thing to say. You can still eat real food, right? Even if you shop at Walmart, you can still do the best you can and move you one step closer. But we're playing in a world, we're in a country that is so broken that to be healthy is a rebellion. To take your health into your own hands and your own mental health in your own hands is a rebellion against the powers that be. I wish it wasn't that way. But what I've come to realize is the only thing that we can do about it is this. We can talk about it. We can discuss it. I can encourage you. I can give you tools. I can give you resources. I can have these discussions. But that's all we can do. You aren't stopping school shootings. The only people that are going to stop school shootings is somebody armed outside. And yes, I do think teachers should have the option to be armed and go through training and get paid extra for it. Because you got to say one thing. If somebody wants to go shoot someplace up and they think that anybody could have a firearm in there, it does give them a little bit of pause. You know? You can create a program for those people with somebody like Tim Kennedy or some former military trainers, you know, retired, do a jobs program for former military and police that are actually qualified and have a good track record, not the shitty cops, you know what I'm saying? And not the shitty military guys, but like the guys who actually go and women who have proven themselves. Create a federal jobs program for them, training teachers up, We can invest in having armed security at our schools, creating a safe environment for our kids. But the thing is, we can't even keep our kids from getting type 2 diabetes. That kills way more kids. Coca-Cola, which is in every elementary school in this country, Coca-Cola kills more kids than assault rifles. And it's not even close. What, 10, 20, 30, 100-fold? Coca-Cola and Little Debbie, Post Foods and PepsiCo kill more children in this country than assault rifles by several times every year. And not only does it kill kids, it decreases their quality of life and their ability to enjoy themselves in life way more than any firearm. You could give kids all handguns and still Coca-Cola would kill more kids than kids kill kids with guns. We don't have that conversation, right? Because if you're a Republican, that's anti-capitalistic and kids are a market. Kids are a market to be sold to and be addicted to the most deadly drug in this country, which is sugar. We can't even straighten that out. And you want to talk about gun violence? You want to focus on gun violence? If you want to save kids, how about we ban them from being able to have contracts with elementary schools? But every time a school board district or a locality tries to do that, Coca-Cola sends down 6 lobbyists in a jet, and they are there so quick, and they are greasing palms and making sure that never happens. Never. So yeah, we're create a rebellion in your own life of taking yourself out of that game and play your own game. Support local farmers. Get local food, get the outside, move your body, read a goddamn book, get off Instagram, get off TikTok, and actually fucking live and raise your kids to live. Brings me to Chris's next question here. It says, as a brand new parent to the freaking cutest baby of all time, yes, she is a very cute baby. What are the top values, ideas, and morals you want to make sure Miss Rowe grows up understanding? Exactly what I told you now. My daughter is 3 months old, and I've already tried to instill in her a distrust in the government. She's not going to be participating in this game. Now, she will, as far as I can influence her, live by my principles of curiosity, resilience, and passion. I want to introduce her to things to be passionate about. I want to teach her how to be a resilient young woman. And I want to raise a curious child, right? Now, when it comes to moral hierarchies, I talked about this on the show the other day. It's like, I think that we've done ourselves a disservice by having the dogma of Christianity be the dominant force in this country and not being open-minded to other belief systems. So I want to introduce her to lots of things. She's not allowed to go to church with my mom. My mom will want to take her. She's not allowed. If my mom takes her and I don't know about it, I will lose it. It will be not fun for her. My mom, Ro will not, it's not her fault. But we're not having that, we're not playing that game. I'm not introducing her to that world. I'm not going to shame my child for natural human processes. But I do think it's important to have something to look into. And I'm going to get her little books about different things and different belief systems that I think are great. Not the gay BCs or whatever the kids are reading now, but teach her how to meditate. Ask her good questions. A kid can learn so much by being asked good questions. And the funny thing is with kids, I try and treat kids like little adults, and I try and treat adults like big kids. It kind of flips the paradigm a little bit. I talk to her in a little bit of a kid voice, but I use big words with her. I want her to hear a lot of different language. I want her to think things through. When she asks me a question, I'll probably answer it with a question, not be like, I don't know. What do you think about that? Instilling curiosity in a child. And then as they get older, introducing them to things and different ideas and different concepts and have them develop kind of their framework for how they want to live their life. And I have as much to learn from her as she has to learn from me. And if I look at it that way, we end up building a really badass life. But as far as the principles, she's not vaccinated. She's going to eat real food. The first, she ate a little bit, we squished up a banana because she'd never had real food. The first real food she's going to eat is elk. I've got an elk shank that I'm going to do ossobuco style with broth. I usually make it spicy, but I'm going to make a separate one for her. And we're going to blend up the elk with broth and potatoes. And that's going to be our first real food. I'm excited about that. My daughter's going to, learn how to kill an animal at a very young age. Whether it's a turkey or a bird or a duck or a deer, whatever we are able to, whatever, a pig maybe. And I wanted to learn how to like emotionally handle that. It's not an easy thing, especially for a young woman. But you know, and even the way that we're like the shows that I'm gonna like put in her life, like Moana, not Frozen, Moana, not Bambi, right? Aladdin, like shows like Lion King, even a little bit, but like these shows where it's like they have some kind of structure that leads you somewhere. Like these are early things that imprint on kids, and there's like a subtle narrative to these things. You gotta be really mindful of that shit. Kids probably not gonna watch much Coco Melon. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not really interested in raising a Coco Melon kid. And maybe she will, I'm sure, at some point. Like, you know, I'm sitting here talking shit. I have a 3-month-old. But like, that's where I'm at with it. You know, I'm so invested in it. I'm so invested in this child. I cannot imagine what it's like to be like a deadbeat dad. Like, it matters more to me than anything. It matters more than this Patreon. It matters more than every one of you motherfuckers out there. It matters so much to me. And so, yeah, like, it's like, I think with that structure and like that, those principles, I think I'm gonna raise a good kid. You know, probably gonna be a bit of a smartass, and we're probably gonna butt heads a little bit. And I want us to, right? I want to be challenged by my teenage daughter. It'll be good for me and it'll be good for her. And she's gonna be right sometimes, and I'm gonna be wrong. And I gotta understand that, you know? And she'll grow up in a world much different than mine. But that's why I think principles over ideology, right? How to think, not what to think. That's where I'm going with this.